The alarm bells rang through the human ship Starlight as Captain Jake Morrison rushed to the bridge. His boots made heavy sounds on the metal floor as he moved quickly past the crew quarters. The ship had been traveling through the empty space near Kepler 442b for 3 days when the sensors picked up something strange. "What do we have?" Jake asked as he reached his command chair. The bridge was dimly lit with blue lights that cast long shadows across the control panels. Amy Chun looked up from her communications station with worry in her eyes. "Captain, we found a ship about 2 miles away from our position. It looks damaged and is drifting without power. The hull has cracks and there are no active engines," Amy reported while checking her screens again. Jake walked over to the main viewing screen and saw the alien vessel floating in the darkness. It was unlike anything he had seen before. The ship had smooth, curved lines and was colored in shades of green and gold. But even from this distance, he could see that large pieces of the hull were missing and sparks were coming from broken sections. "Any life signs?" Jake asked while studying the damaged ship. Dr. Lisa Parker looked up from her medical scanner and nodded slowly. "Yes, Captain. I am reading multiple life forms inside the vessel. Their body temperatures are dropping fast, though. Whatever species they are, they seem to be in serious trouble from the cold." Jake had grown up in Alaska, where temperatures could drop to 40 below zero. He knew what cold could do to living beings. Even with their advanced technology, humans still respected the power of freezing temperatures. If these aliens were not prepared for cold, they could be dying right now. "Tony, can you get us closer to their ship?" Jake called to his engineer. Tony Rodriguez was working at the engine controls and gave a thumbs-up sign. "Already on it, Captain? Moving us into position now. Should be there in about 5 minutes." Jake watched as the alien ship grew larger on the screen. The damage was even worse than he first thought. Entire sections of the vessel were missing, and he could see into the interior where emergency lights were flashing red. Ice crystals were forming on the outside of the hull, which meant the internal heating had failed completely. "Amy, try to contact them. See if they can understand us." Amy worked at her communications panel and sent out signals on multiple frequencies. After several minutes of trying different channels, a weak voice came through the speakers. The voice was female and sounded desperate. "Please help us. We are freezing and our people are dying. I do not know your language well, but I beg you to save us." Jake felt his chest tighten as he heard the fear in the alien voice. Through the static, he could hear other sounds in the background. People were crying and making sounds of pain. The situation was worse than he thought. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the human vessel Starlight. We want to help you. Can you tell us how many people are on your ship?" There was a pause before the voice came back. This time it was clearer and Jake could hear that the speaker was fighting to stay calm. "I am Zara of the Setharan people. We have 43 souls aboard this vessel. Our heating systems failed 2 days ago and we have been getting colder ever since. Many of my people cannot move anymore and some have stopped breathing." Jake looked around at his crew. They were all listening to the conversation and he could see the same determination in their eyes that he felt. These aliens needed help and they were the only ones who could provide it. "Zara, we are going to help you. We are moving our ship closer to yours right now. Can you tell us what happened to your vessel?" "We were fleeing from the Glacial Syndicate when they attacked us. They damaged our engines and our life support systems. We have been drifting for days trying to reach a safe world, but we are so cold now. I do not think we can survive much longer," Tony called out from the station. "Captain, we are in position. I can extend the docking tube to their ship if you want to board them." Jake nodded and then spoke into the communications system again. "Zara, we are going to connect our ships together. We will come over to help your people. Just hold on a little longer." The voice that came back was so weak that Jake had to strain to hear it. "Captain Morrison, I must tell you something. My people have nothing left to give you for your help. We lost everything when we fled our world. All I can offer is myself. I am freezing and I need warmth. Give me a blanket and my body is yours tonight. I will do whatever you ask if you just save my people." Jake felt a chill run down his spine, but it was not from cold. This alien was so desperate that she was willing to trade her own body just for basic warmth and survival. He had heard of cultures where such exchanges were normal, but it still made him uncomfortable. Zara, you do not need to offer us anything. We are going to help you because it is the right thing to do. No payment is needed, and no one will be asked to do anything they do not want to do. There was silence from the other ship for a long moment. When Zara spoke again, her voice was full of confusion. I do not understand. Why would you help us without payment? In our part of the galaxy, nothing is free. Everything has a price. Jake looked at his crew and saw them all nodding in agreement. This was what separated humans from many other species they had encountered. They helped others not because they expected something in return, but because they believed it was right. Zara, you will understand in time. For now, just know that we are coming to help you. Lisa, get the medical bay ready for multiple patients suffering from hypothermia. Tony, extend the docking tube. Amy, keep talking to Zara and let her know what we are doing. As the crew moved to follow his orders, Jake felt proud of his people. They were about to risk their own safety to help complete strangers. The alien ship could be dangerous, or this could be some kind of trap. But they were still going to help because that was what humans did. Captain, Amy called out. The docking tube is connected and sealed. We have a safe passage between the ships. Jake grabbed his emergency kit and headed for the airlock. Lisa, you are with me. Tony, stay here and monitor both ships. Amy, keep talking to Zara and let her know we are coming. As Jake stepped through the airlock into the alien ship, he was hit by a wave of freezing air. Ice covered the walls and floor, making each step dangerous. He could see his breath in the cold air and knew that these aliens were in serious trouble. The first thing he saw was Zara herself. She was sitting against a wall wrapped in what looked like thin cloth. Her skin was blue-green in color and she was shaking violently from the cold. Her large eyes looked up at him with a mixture of hope and fear. Without hesitation, Jake pulled a thermal blanket from his kit and wrapped it around her shoulders. You are going to be okay, Zara. We are here to help. 3 hours later, Zara sat in the warm medical bay of the human ship, wrapped in several thermal blankets. The feeling was slowly returning to her fingers and toes, but she still could not believe what had happened. The humans had rescued all 43 of her people without asking for anything in return. Dr. Lisa Parker had worked tirelessly to treat everyone suffering from hypothermia, while the other crew members helped move the Scytherans to safety. Zara watched as Captain Jake Morrison talked quietly with his crew near the medical bay entrance. She had expected him to come to her by now to discuss payment for their rescue. In her experience, no one helped others without expecting something back. The fact that he had not mentioned her offer from earlier made her nervous. Maybe he was waiting for her to bring it up again. Amy Chun approached Zara with a warm cup of something that smelled sweet and comforting. This is hot chocolate, Amy said with a smile. It will help warm you up from the inside. Zara accepted the cup gratefully and took a small sip. The warm liquid spread through her body and she felt better than she had in days. Thank you, Amy. This is very good. I've never tasted anything like it. Amy sat down in the chair next to Zara and looked at her with curious eyes. Can you tell me about your people, Zara? Where do you come from? We are from Sithara Prime. Zara replied while taking another sip of the hot chocolate. It is a beautiful world where the temperature never drops below what you would call 80 degrees. We have 3 suns that keep our planet warm all year long. There are no seasons like you have on Earth. Every day is like summer. Amy nodded with interest. That sounds wonderful. I can see why the cold would be so dangerous for your people. We humans are used to dealing with different temperatures. Some of us actually enjoy the cold weather. Zara looked at Amy with confusion. You enjoy being cold. Why would anyone choose to be uncomfortable? Well, it is not really about being uncomfortable, Amy explained. Some humans find cold weather refreshing or peaceful. Captain Morrison grew up in Alaska where it gets very cold. He learned to appreciate the beauty of winter and how it makes you feel alive. This concept was completely foreign to Zara. On her world, everyone tried to stay as warm as possible at all times. The idea that someone would choose to be cold seemed impossible to understand. Amy, I need to ask you something, Zara said quietly. When will Captain Morrison come to collect payment for rescuing us? I made him an offer, but he has not responded. Yet Amy looked puzzled. What kind of offer did you make? Zara felt her cheeks warm with embarrassment. I told him that if he gave me a blanket and warmth, my body would be his tonight. It is the only thing I have left to trade. I thought all species understood this type of arrangement. Amy's eyes widened with surprise and concern. Oh, Zara, no, that is not how humans work. Captain Morrison would never accept such an offer. We helped you because we wanted to help, not because we expected payment. But that makes no sense, Zara replied. In our part of the galaxy, everything has a price. No one does anything for free. If you give help, you expect something back. That is how trade works. Amy leaned forward and spoke gently. Zara, let me explain something about humans. We believe that helping others is the right thing to do. We do not help people because we want something from them. We help because we care. About other living beings, Zara shook her head. I do not understand. If you do not want payment, then why did you risk your lives to save us? Your ship could have been damaged. Your crew could have been hurt. What do you gain from helping strangers? We gain the knowledge that we did something good, Amy said with a warm smile. When we help others, we feel good about ourselves. We sleep better at night knowing that we made a difference in someone's life. That feeling is worth more than any payment. This was the most confusing conversation Zara had ever had. Her people were traders who understood that everything had value. You gave something to get something else. The idea that humans would help others just to feel good about themselves seemed impossible. But what if we had nothing to offer you? Zara asked. What if we were poor and had no money or goods to trade? Would you still have helped us? Of course we would have, Amy replied without hesitation. Being poor does not make someone less deserving of help. If anything, it makes them more deserving because they need help the most. Zara sat quietly for several minutes thinking about what Amy had told her. During this time, she watched the human crew working together to help her people. Dr. Parker was checking on an elderly Cytheran man who had been close to death when they were rescued. Tony Rodriguez was explaining to a group of young Cytherans how the ship's heating system worked. Everyone was smiling and seemed genuinely happy to be helping. Amy, Zara said finally, I think I insulted Captain Morrison with my offer. I did not understand your customs. In my culture, what I offered would be considered normal in a desperate situation. Amy patted Zara's hand gently. You did not insult him, Zara. He understood that you were desperate and trying to find a way to save your people. That shows how much you care about them. Captain Morrison respects that even if he would never accept such an offer. Should I apologize to him? Zara asked. If you want to, then yes, Amy replied. But know that he does not think badly of you. He understands that different cultures have different ways of doing things. At that moment, Captain Morrison walked over to where they were sitting. He looked tired but satisfied. How are you feeling, Zara? He asked. Much better, Captain Morrison. Your Dr. Parker is very skilled. She has helped many of my people who were close to death. Zara paused and looked down at her hands. I need to apologize to you, Captain. I made an inappropriate offer earlier. I did not understand your customs. Jake sat down across from them and smiled kindly. You have nothing to apologize for, Zara. You were trying to save your people in the only way you knew how. That takes courage, and I respect that, but I still do not understand why you helped us, Zara said. Amy explained that humans help others just because it feels good, but that seems too simple. Jake thought for a moment before answering. Zara, imagine if you saw a child drowning in a river. Would you jump in to save them even if you had never met them before? Of course I would, Zara replied immediately. Why would you do that? Jake asked. What would you gain from saving a stranger? Zara realized she could not give a logical answer. I would save them because it would be wrong to let them die when I could help. Jake nodded. That is exactly why we helped you. We could not let your people die when we had the power to save them. It would have been wrong. For the first time since the rescue, Zara began to understand. Humans did not help others because they expected payment. They helped because they believed it was morally right to do so. This was a completely new way of thinking for her, but it made her feel hopeful about the future. 2 days into their journey toward the nearest safe colony world, the warning alarms on the Starlight began to sound. Captain Jake Morrison was in the dining hall sharing a meal with some of the Scytheran refugees when the emergency alert echoed through the ship. He stood up quickly and saw the fear return to Zara's eyes. "What does that alarm mean?" she asked while gripping the table with her green-tinged hands. "It means we have company," Jake replied grimly. "And probably not the friendly kind." Jake hurried to the bridge where Amy Chun was already at her station, scanning the surrounding space. Her face was pale as she looked up at him. "Captain, we have 5 large ships approaching from the rear. They are moving fast and their energy signatures match nothing in our database." "How long before they reach us?" Jake asked, while taking his position at the command chair. "About 10 minutes at their current speed," Amy replied. "They are hailing US on multiple frequencies." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. He had a feeling he knew who these ships belonged to. "Put them through, Amy." The main screen flickered and then showed a creature that made Jake's blood run cold. It looked like it was made of living ice with sharp crystalline features and eyes that glowed with pale blue light. When it spoke, its voice sounded like breaking glass. "I am Admiral Frostspike of the Glacial Syndicate. You are harboring escaped prisoners who belong to us. Return the Scytherans immediately or face the consequences." Jake stood up and walked closer to the screen. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the human vessel Starlight. These people are not prisoners. They are refugees seeking safety. We will not turn them over to you." Admiral Frostspike made a sound that might have been laughter but sounded more like ice cracking. "Human, you do not understand the situation. The Scytherans are property of the Glacial Syndicate. They were assigned to work in our ice mines until they foolishly tried to escape. They must be returned to face justice." "Justice," Jake said with anger in his voice. "You mean slavery." "These people are free beings who have the right to choose their own fate. Your species is new to this part of the galaxy, human." Admiral Frostspike replied coldly. "You do not know our ways. The Syndicate has ruled this sector for 1,000 years. We bring order through the power of ice and cold. Those who serve us well are rewarded. Those who rebel are frozen." Jake looked around at his crew and saw the same determination in their eyes that he felt. They would not abandon the Scytherans to these ice creatures no matter what the cost. "Admiral, I am going to say this once," Jake said firmly. "These people are under our protection. If you want them, you will have to go through us first, Admiral." Frostspike's glowing eyes narrowed. "So be it, human. Your ship will make a fine addition to our frozen fleet. All vessels prepare to freeze the enemy." The communication ended and Jake turned to his crew. "Battle stations, everyone. Tony, I need everything you can give me from the engines. Lisa, get all the Scytherans to the safest part of the ship. Amy, try to send a distress signal to any friendly ships in the area." Tony Rodriguez looked up from his engineering station with worry on his face. "Captain, their ships are much larger than ours. If they have weapons to match their size, we might be in serious trouble." Jake nodded grimly. "I know, Tony, but we are not going to give up without a fight. Humans have been dealing with cold for thousands of years. Maybe we can use that to our advantage." The Syndicate ships moved into attack formation around the Starlight. Jake could see that each vessel looked like it was carved from a single piece of ice. Strange blue energy coursed through their hulls and he could feel the temperature on his ship beginning to drop. "Captain," Amy called out, "they are firing some kind of freezing beam at us. Hull temperature is dropping rapidly." Jake watched as ice crystals began forming on the bridge windows. The air itself seemed to be getting thicker and harder to breathe. He could see his breath now and knew that the Syndicate was trying to freeze them solid. "Tony, can you boost the heating systems?" Jake asked while his crew began to shiver at their stations. "Already on it, Captain," Tony replied. "But their freezing beam is incredibly powerful." "I'm not sure our heaters can keep up." Jake thought quickly about everything he knew about cold weather survival. Growing up in Alaska had taught him that the key to surviving extreme cold was not just having heat but knowing how to use it efficiently. "Tony, instead of trying to heat the whole ship, can you redirect all power to just the bridge?" and essential systems that might work, Captain, Tony said while his fingers flew over the controls. If we concentrate our heating in smaller areas, we can maintain higher temperatures. The plan seemed to work for a few minutes, but then Admiral Frostspike's voice came over the communication system again. You cannot resist the power of the Syndicate forever, human. Your ship will become a frozen tomb and your bodies will join our collection of ice sculptures. Jake realized that the Syndicate had been doing this for a long time. They probably had experienced freezing ships from many different species, but he was betting that they had never encountered humans before. Amy, send a message to the Syndicate ships, Jake ordered. Tell them we want to negotiate. Amy looked surprised but followed his orders. A few moments later, Admiral Frostspike appeared on the screen again. Have you decided to surrender, human? Not exactly, Jake replied. I want to make you an offer. If you can freeze our ship completely, we will surrender the Scytherans to you. But if we can resist your freezing beams for 1 hour, then you let us go. Admiral Frostspike seemed intrigued by this proposal. You think your primitive heating systems can resist our power for a full hour? Very well, human. If you can survive our strongest freezing attack for 1 hour, we will consider letting you leave. But when you fail, the Scytherans will face double punishment for your resistance. Jake looked at his crew and saw trust in their eyes. They believed in him even though he was not sure his plan would work. Deal, Admiral. Begin your attack. The Syndicate ships moved closer and Jake could see their weapons charging with bright blue energy. The temperature on the bridge dropped so fast that water began freezing in their cups. Ice formed on the control panels and breathing became difficult, but Jake had grown up in weather that could kill a person in minutes. He knew things about surviving extreme cold that these ice creatures might not expect. Tony, I need you to cycle the heating systems on and off every few minutes. Do not try to maintain constant heat, Captain. That does not make sense, Tony replied while shivering. If we turn off the heat, we will freeze faster. Trust me, Tony, Jake said. In Alaska, we learned that your body works harder to stay warm when the temperature changes. Constant heat makes you weak, but changing temperatures make you stronger. As the Syndicate continued their attack, Jake began to implement other cold weather survival techniques he had learned. He ordered his crew to keep moving to maintain blood circulation. He had them drink warm liquids regularly and eat high-energy foods. Most importantly, he kept their spirits up by reminding them that they were fighting for the freedom of innocent people. The hours seemed to last forever, but somehow the human crew survived. When the time was up, Admiral Frostspike appeared on the screen again. This time, the ice creature looked surprised and perhaps a little respectful. You have proven more resilient than expected, human, Admiral Frostspike said. But this changes nothing. We will return with more ships and freeze your entire sector of space if necessary. Jake smiled grimly. You are welcome to try, Admiral, but I think you will find that humans are harder to freeze than you expect. After the Glacial Syndicate ships pulled back from their first attack, Captain Jake Morrison knew they would return with more firepower. The ice creatures had underestimated human resistance to cold, but they would not make the same mistake twice. Jake called his senior crew to the bridge for an emergency meeting while the Scytherans rested in the warmer sections of the ship. They will be back within hours, Jake said as he looked at the tired faces of his crew. Admiral Frostspike is not the type to give up easily. We need to be ready for a much bigger fight. Tony Rodriguez wiped ice crystals from his console and shook his head. Captain, our heating systems are already pushed to their limits. If they bring more ships with stronger freezing weapons, I do not know how long we can last. Dr. Lisa Parker had been working on something in her medical lab during the battle. She stepped forward with a small device in her hands. I might have a solution to part of our problem. I have been studying Scytheran biology, and I think I can create a serum that will help them survive in cold temperatures. Jake looked at the device with interest. How does it work, Lisa? Human blood contains special proteins that help us survive in cold weather, Dr. Parker explained. I have isolated these proteins and modified them to work with Scytheran biology. If I inject this serum into their bloodstream, it should give them some protection against freezing. Zara had been listening from the bridge entrance. She stepped forward with hope in her eyes. Dr. Parker, if this works, my people could help fight instead of just hiding. We are not warriors, but we can operate equipment and support your crew, Jake nodded. Do it, Lisa. We need all the help we can. While Dr. Parker worked on preparing the serum, Jake turned to his navigation officer, Ben Clark. Ben had grown up in Minnesota where winters were long and brutal. Ben, I need you to plot a course through the asteroid field near here. If we can get the Syndicate ships to follow us into that field, we might be able to use the asteroids as cover. Ben studied his charts and frowned. Captain, that asteroid field is dangerous even in normal conditions. With ice forming on everything, it will be like flying through a frozen maze. One wrong move, and we could crash into a rock. I know, Ben, but we need every advantage we can get, Jake replied. The Syndicate ships are built for open space combat. They might not be as maneuverable in tight quarters. Amy Chun looked up from her communications station with excitement. Captain, I have been monitoring Syndicate communications. They are calling for reinforcements from 3 different star systems. But I also picked up something else. There are other ships in this area that might be willing to help us. Jake felt a spark of hope. What kind of ships, Amy? There is a trading convoy about 6 hours away that includes several species the Syndicate has attacked before, Amy explained. If we can reach them and convince them to join us, we might have a chance. Jake made his decision quickly. Amy, send a message to that convoy. Tell them we have information about Syndicate movements and we need to meet with them. Ben, plot a course through the asteroid field toward the convoy location. Tony, I need you to work on something special. Tony looked puzzled. What do you have in mind, Captain? The Syndicate uses ice and cold as weapons, Jake explained. But ice can also be used as a tool. I want you to modify our hull plating so we can reflect their freezing beams back at them. Tony's eyes widened. With understanding, like using mirrors to reflect sunlight. If we can angle our hull plates correctly, we might be able to turn their own weapons against them, Jake smiled. Exactly, and I have one more idea. Maria, I need you to select a team for a boarding mission. Maria Santos looked surprised. Captain, you want us to board a Syndicate ship? Those things are probably colder than deep space inside. That is exactly why we can do it and they cannot expect it, Jake replied. The Syndicate thinks cold is their advantage. But we humans have been dealing with extreme cold for thousands of years. We have equipment and training that will let us operate in conditions that would kill most other species. Maria nodded slowly. I understand, Captain. I will get the cold weather gear ready and pick a team of volunteers. For the next 4 hours, the crew worked frantically to prepare for the next battle. Dr. Parker injected the cold resistance serum into all the Scytherans, who were healthy enough to help. Tony and his engineering team modified the hull plating to create reflective surfaces. Ben programmed a dangerous course through the asteroid field that would test the limits of their navigation systems. Maria assembled a team of 5 crew members who had experience with extreme cold conditions. They tested their specialized suits and equipment to make sure everything would work in the freezing environment of a Syndicate ship. When the Syndicate fleet appeared on their sensors, Jake was ready. This time there were 8 ships instead of 5, and they looked even more threatening than before. Admiral Frostspike's face appeared on the screen with a look of cold anger. Human, you have had time to consider your position, the ice creature said. Surrender the Scytherans now, or we will freeze this entire sector of space. Jake stood up and faced the screen with confidence. Admiral, we have considered your offer and we respectfully decline. These people are free and they will stay free. Then you have chosen death, Admiral Frostspike replied. All ships begin maximum freezing bombardment. Turn their ship into a block of ice. The Syndicate ships open fire with beams of energy so cold that space itself seemed to freeze around them. But this time Jake was ready. Tony, activate the hull modifications now. The reflective panels on the Starlight's hull began to move and angle themselves toward the incoming freezing beams. Instead of absorbing the cold energy, the ship began to reflect it back at the Syndicate vessels. The ice creatures had never experienced having their own weapons turned against them. Then take us into the asteroid field, Jake ordered. Full speed ahead. The Starlight dove into the dangerous field of floating rocks with the Syndicate ships following close behind. The asteroids were covered with ice from the previous battle, making them even more treacherous. But Ben's skill as a navigator and his experience with winter driving helped him guide the ship through the deadly maze. The Syndicate ships were larger and less maneuverable than the human vessel. As they tried to follow through the asteroid field, several of them collided with the frozen rocks. Their ice-covered hulls cracked and shattered on impact. "Maria, are you ready for the boarding mission?" Jake asked as they reached the center of the asteroid field. "Ready, Captain," Maria replied from the airlock. "My team is suited up and prepared for freezing conditions." Jake watched as one of the damaged Syndicate ships drifted close to their position. "There is your target, Maria. Get aboard that ship and see if you can disable their weapon systems." Maria and her team launched themselves across the gap between ships using jetpacks designed for cold weather operations. They landed on the ice-covered hull of the enemy vessel and began cutting through the frozen metal with heated tools. Inside the Syndicate ship, the temperature was so cold that normal beings would have died instantly. But Maria's team was equipped with suits that could handle temperatures far below what the ice creatures expected. They moved through the ship's corridors like ghosts, finding the weapon control systems and setting charges to destroy them. Meanwhile, Jake continued to use the asteroids as cover while reflecting the Syndicate's freezing beams back at them. The ice creatures were beginning to realize that their usual tactics were not working against these strange humans. "Captain," Amy called out, "I'm getting signals from the trading convoy. They are approaching our position and they want to help." Jake felt hope growing in his chest. "What kind of ships are they, Amy?" "The convoy includes fire-breathing Protheans and several other warm-blooded species," Amy replied. "They have been fighting the Syndicate for years and they want revenge." As the convoy ships arrived, Jake saw that they were equipped with heat-based weapons that were the natural enemy of the ice creatures. The battle was about to turn in their favor. The arrival of the trading convoy changed everything. Captain Jake Morrison watched as 12 ships emerged from behind the largest asteroid, each one glowing with the heat of different warm-blooded species. The lead ship was massive and covered in red scales that seemed to burn with inner fire. When its captain spoke through the communications system, his voice sounded like a roaring flame. "I am Captain Blazewing of the Pyrothean fleet," the voice announced. "We have been hunting these ice demons for 3 years since they froze our colony world. Today we finish what they started." Admiral Frostspike's image appeared on the screen, and for the first time Jake saw fear in the ice creature's glowing eyes. "Protheans," Admiral Frostspike hissed. "Your kind should have learned to stay away from Syndicate territory." "This is not your territory anymore, Ice Demon," Captain Blazewing replied. "Today we take it back and free all the worlds you have frozen." The space around the asteroid field erupted into the strangest battle Jake had ever seen. Fire met ice as the Pyrothean ships launched streams of superheated plasma at the Syndicate vessels. The ice ships tried to respond with their freezing beams, but the heat weapons cut through their defenses like a knife through snow. Explosions of steam filled the void as ice turned instantly to vapor. Maria Santos and her boarding team had successfully disabled the weapons on one Syndicate ship. They reported back to Jake through their communicators. "Captain, we have control of their weapon systems, but we found something else. There are prisoners on this ship from at least 6 different species. They look like they have been forced to work as slaves." Jake felt anger building in his chest. "Are they alive, Maria?" "Barely, Captain," Maria replied. "They are all suffering from severe hypothermia and malnutrition. It looks like the Syndicate has been using them as forced labor in freezing conditions for months or maybe years." Jake made a decision that would change the course of the battle. "Amy, send a message to all ships in the area. Tell them the Syndicate ships contain prisoners who need immediate rescue. We are not just fighting to defeat the enemy, we are fighting to save innocent lives." The message had an immediate effect on the Allied fleet. Ships that had been focusing on destroying the Syndicate vessels began changing tactics to disable them instead. The goal was no longer just victory but rescue and liberation. Dr. Lisa Parker worked with medical teams from the convoy ships to treat the rescued prisoners. Many of them had been frozen and thawed multiple times as punishment for disobedience. Others had lost fingers and toes to frostbite. But they were alive and they were free. One of the rescued prisoners was brought to the bridge of the Starlight. He was a tall, thin being with gray skin and large, sad eyes. When he spoke, his voice was weak but filled with gratitude. "I am Elder Korvath of the Thermal Collective," he said while wrapped in heating blankets. "My people have been slaves of the Syndicate for 2 years. We never thought anyone would come to save us." Jake helped the alien sit down in a comfortable chair. "You are safe now, Elder Korvath. Can you tell us how many worlds the Syndicate has conquered?" Elder Korvath closed his eyes as if remembering was painful. 17 worlds that I know of, Captain. Each one was attacked and frozen until the population surrendered. Those who resisted were killed. Those who submitted became slaves. The Syndicate has been growing stronger every year. Zara had been listening to the conversation, and she stepped forward with determination in her voice. "Captain Morrison, this must end today. If we let the Syndicate escape, they will return with even more ships and freeze more worlds. My people and I want to help finish this fight." Jake looked at Zara with respect. A few days ago she had been freezing and desperate, offering herself as payment for help. Now she was volunteering to fight against the very creatures who had enslaved her people. "What do you have in mind, Zara?" "My people know the locations of all the Syndicate bases in this sector," Zara explained. "We can guide your ships to their homeworlds and help coordinate attacks. The Scytherans may not be warriors, but we are excellent navigators and communicators." Captain Blazewing's voice came over the communications system. "Human Captain, your species fights with honor and wisdom. The Protheans would be proud to call you allies in this war against the ice demons." Jake felt a sense of pride at the Protheans' words. "The honor is ours, Captain Blazewing. Together we can free all the worlds the Syndicate has conquered." The battle continued for several more hours, but the outcome was no longer in doubt. The combined fleet of warm-blooded species was too powerful for the remaining Syndicate ships. One by one, the ice vessels were disabled and boarded. Hundreds of prisoners from dozens of different species were rescued from their frozen cells. Admiral Frostspike made one final appearance on the communications screen. His crystalline form was cracked and damaged, and his glowing eyes had dimmed. "This is not over, human," he said with hatred in his voice. "The Syndicate spans 1,000 star systems. We will return and freeze your entire galaxy if necessary." Jake stood up and faced the screen with calm determination. "Admiral, you are welcome to try. But I think you will find that warm-blooded species work better together than ice creatures do alone. We have something you will never understand." "And what is that, human?" Admiral Frostspike asked. "We have friendship," Jake replied. "We help each other not because we expect payment, but because we care about other living beings. That makes us stronger than any freezing weapon you can build, Admiral." Frostspike's image flickered and disappeared as his ship was finally overwhelmed by the Allied fleet. The battle was over, and the Syndicate forces in this sector had been defeated. In the days that followed, Jake watched as the rescued species worked together to plan their future. The Scytherans shared their knowledge of trade routes and navigation. The Protheans offered protection with their powerful heat weapons. The Thermal Collective provided advanced technology for healing and reconstruction. Elder Korvath's people contributed their expertise in energy systems and power generation. Zara approached Jake as he stood in the observation deck watching the Allied ships working together. "Captain Morrison, I need to apologize to you again for my offer when we first met. I understand now that what I proposed was wrong according to your customs." Jake turned to face her with a gentle smile. "Zara, you have nothing to apologize for. You were trying to save your people in the only way you knew how. That shows courage and love. I have learned so much from your people," Zara said thoughtfully. "Before meeting humans, I thought the galaxy was a cold place where everyone only cared about themselves. Now I see that there can be warmth between species who barely know each other." Jake nodded. "That is what makes the difference, Zara. When We choose to help others instead of exploiting them. We create something bigger than ourselves. We create hope. Zara reached into a bag she was carrying and pulled out a beautiful cloak made from Scythian thermal fabric. The material seemed to glow with inner warmth and was decorated with intricate patterns in gold and green. Captain, this is a traditional Scythian friendship cloak. It is not payment for what you did. It is a gift between friends. Jake accepted the cloak with honor and wrapped it around his shoulders. The warmth spread through his body immediately, and he felt a deep sense of connection to Zara and her people. Thank you, Zara. This means more to me than you know, and I have something to teach you in return, Jake said with a smile. He led Zara to a small room where he had set up some simple materials. This is how humans have been sharing warmth for thousands of years. Jake showed Zara how to build a small campfire using wood and kindling. As the flames grew bright and warm, he explained how early humans had gathered around fires to share food stories and friendship. Fire brought people together, he said. It made us stronger as a community. Zara watched the flames dance and felt their warmth on her face. I understand now, Captain. When you share warmth with others, it grows instead of diminishing. The more you give, the more everyone has. Jake smiled as he watched the fire burn. That is exactly right, Zara, and that is why the thermal alliance we are forming will succeed. We are not taking from each other, we are sharing with each other. The story ended with representatives from 17 different species meeting on a warm planet to sign the charter for the thermal alliance. The organization would be dedicated to protecting refugees, helping rebuild frozen worlds, and stopping the spread of the glacial syndicate. Jake was chosen as the first human representative, while Zara became the Scythian ambassador. As they stood together at the signing ceremony, Jake reflected on how much had changed since that desperate moment when Zara had offered herself for a blanket. What had started as a simple rescue mission had become the foundation for a new kind of civilization based on cooperation instead of exploitation. The galaxy was still a dangerous place, but now there were species willing to help each other face those dangers together.